Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict, featuring me, SpraynPray1000, as I review some of the new games that have recently come out that I've done playthroughs for on my channel. So now today we are going to talk about actually, we're not going to talk about Fuse because Surgster2 and I have yet to finish that game in co-op. He's just been very busy and, doing other stuff, and I really wish we could get it over and done with, but unfortunately for the moment that doesn't seem likely. So today we are instead going to talk about another release that came out after Fuse, which is Remember Me. And Remember Me, for those of you who don't know, is basically a standalone game. It's set in the future where memories, human memories, can be bought and sold and exchanged between people as a result of new technological advances, as well as a device called a Sensen. Okay, and I'll explain that in a little more. So what is Remember Me? Okay, actually I want to talk about the gameplay first. The gameplay of Remember Me is sort of a mix between a platformer, as well as a beat 'em up, as well as sort of an investigative style game. Okay, so let's analyze this one by one. For your platforming segments, they're pretty straightforward. You jump between ledges. Sometimes you have to time your jump. Sometimes you have to carefully grab ledges on your way down. And pretty much for the most part, the platforming is like almost every other platformer you probably ever played. Prince of Persia, God of War, like all these other games, you've probably already done this already. So in terms of platforming, it's just kind of your standard fare. Now, actually, where the game really gets interesting is the beat 'em up aspect of the game, okay? The combat of this game is actually a bit different from, say, your average beat 'em up, and feels a little bit like a twist on the Batman Arkham games by Rocksteady. So you don't have a counter move, but you do have your usual dodge move, which lets you hop over enemies. And the main, offensive part of the combat is that you actually combine and make combos, which are called pressins, that you use to help you out in combat. Now, each combo has a certain string of inputs that you then assign specific buttons to, and each button has its own attribute. So, for example, you might have a combo that's XXX or XX. Yeah, let's just stick with XXX. Now, in each of those slots, you can assign one of 4 attributes that's an X input. So, for example, there's power pressins, there's regen pressins, there's chain pressins, and then there's cooldown pressins. Power pressins are pretty much your standard pressin. What you do with them is you basically use them to break through light enemy guards, and really deal a lot of damage. And that's pretty much their standard use. Now, regen pressins are kind of what the name suggests. They heal you actually while you're in combat. So let's say you've taken damage and you want to heal. All you have to do is just simply start using a combo that has a regen pressin, and every successful hit that you land that has a regen move in it, you'll regain some health. Beyond that, you also have your chain pressins, which, as they kind of sound, they're meant to be put in a chain, and what they do is they actually increase. Well, by chain I mean they're meant to be put in succession after another type of pressin, and what they do is they actually increase the effect of the last pressin. So, for example, if you use a power hit and then you use a chain pressin, it'll turn into a power pressin, but with a bigger effect than if you were to place another power pressin. So really, if you put a chain pressin in your combo, you're actually getting a bigger effect than what you would normally get from a similar pressin of the last attribute, and that can really help you out. And I'm going to talk about pressins a little more in a second. And finally, the last part of the game, of the pressins family, is the cooldown pressins. Now, cooldown pressins are, again, They're used to cool down your S pressings or your special pressings, which are powerful abilities that the main character gets to use throughout the game. So now, the one final thing about pressings that I want to say is, the further you place a pressin in your hit string, the more powerful its effect is. So placing a power pressin at the start isn't going to be as effective as if it were the final hit in the combo. So you can imagine, and then that adds to the fact that you want to play around with these pressins, decide what really works for you, and what's basically the best way to go about combos, so that you're most efficient at what you do. So for me, I pretty much had a healing pressin combo, a cooldown pressin combo, and then two offensively minded pressin combos. So I think that setup worked very well for me. It let me do what I needed to do, and I really enjoyed the combat because of that. Now, S pressins, on the other hand, are randomly remembered throughout the story. Well, they're remembered at specific points in the story, and basically they're like your table turners. You know what I mean? They're meant to be used to completely reverse the flow of combat. So, for example, let's say you're up against a whole bunch of enemies. Well, one of your special pressins allows you to slap a bomb to one of the people, and it'll actually explode. It's not really a bomb per se, as in a fragmentation and shrapnel, but all this stuff is data fragments, okay? Because the sensors on the back of everyone's heads, they're basically hooked up to their neural networks, and they're an integrated part of your mind. And a lot of your S pressins, what they're used to do is used to hack into it, feed it false information, basically fuck with the actual run times of it, and kind of drive people crazy. One of them actually lets you turn invisible. Another one lets you basically free flow combat as though you really were playing Batman Arkham City or Batman Arkham Asylum. In terms of the fact that you no longer use pressins, you just start punching as fast as you can, trying to build the biggest hit string. Another pressin lets you turn robot enemies, which can normally only be damaged using the spammer, which is this arm cannon thing that you acquire early in the game. It lets you turn them against your enemies and potentially kill some enemies while self-destructing the robot. And then I forget what the other pressin I'm missing is. Another one lets you confuse all the enemies in the area. And really, it's more about... Alright, now I really don't remember where I was. But basically, S pressins are used to turn the tide of battle. And I think that for the most part, they're really helpful in that regard. They actually do help out a lot. Now, here's where the problems begin, unfortunately. Like a lot of games... like a lot of games and a lot of beat-em-ups in particular, it feels that sometimes, you'll be doing something and either you'll be unable to dodge out the way properly or you'll just get cheaply hit. And it's kind of the same problems that I've been having with all these other games. Like, for example, at one point towards the end of the game, I just finished landing a power hit on a big enemy, which is, at least supposed to stun him for a second and knock him back. Because that's how you break his guard. And then all of a sudden, as I'm in the slow motion move, twirling in midair, he just goes into a hit attack, and it just hits me. Of course, because it hits me because I'm in the middle of the finishing animation. There's nothing much I can really do about that. It's just he has to hit me there. I just have to get hit because you can't dodge when you're in the middle of doing something else. Now, you can cancel moves in this game, which I think is really good, because not a lot of games allow you to cancel out really easily in case an enemy is starting an attack that you don't see coming until you've started yours. And in fact, you can actually break up combos and continue them that way so you can finish them. So you can get 3 hits on someone and someone else starts to attack, and then you can just hop right over them and then just continue and finish. And you can even do it like early on in the slow-mo, but not later on in the slow-mo. Another thing is, a lot of times it feels like a lot of these areas are cramped, and it's very easy to get trapped in corners, and the hop over enemies ability doesn't always fire off properly for some reason. And really, these aren't major problems with the game, but it's kind of the same nuisances that a lot of other beat 'em ups have, and it's just, at this point, I've kind of seen them all. It's just like, oh, well, here's another beat 'em up game. Is it going to have the same problems as all the other beat 'em ups I've played in the past 3 years, or is it going to, do things a bit differently? So, unfortunately, Remember Me does not past this hurdle. It kind of trips over with every other beat 'em up. So unfortunate, but I guess that's just the way things are. Now, the other part of gameplay is actually the interesting story-based part. As Nilin, who is the main character, you are a memory hunter, and you're allowed to steal memories from people and even alter them and make them remember things differently. Now, one of the core aspects of gameplay during some of the levels is that you actually enter the minds of people, you watch key moments from their lives, and then you remix them and to make them basically remember a different outcome. So, for example, one of them, which is actually shown on the Xbox Live dashboard, involves you remixing someone's memory so that they kill their wife or their girlfriend. I think it was their girlfriend. Where in actuality, what happens is she just leaves the apartment. They have an argument. She leaves. That's what actually happened. What you end up doing is you enter his mind and then you try to make it so that he remembers it so that he killed her. And I think that probably was one of the most interesting things. One of the things that really got me interested in this game is the fact that it's going to, be an investigative style game where you're going to be entering people's minds and remixing memories. I thought that was really interesting and really something unique that I've never really seen in a game before. Unfortunately, and here's the big unfortunately, and now we're going to get into the disappointments with this game. There's only 4 instances throughout the game when you actually get to do that. So to me, it feels like they could have really had something very unique, not entirely beat 'em up, and they could have taken it a step further by almost kind of like what Watch Dogs is advertising at this point, and we'll actually see if Watch Dogs lives up to that. Watch Dogs, for those of you who don't know, wants you not to think about the game as a run and gun style game, but more as let me close my laptop really quick. But more as the kind of game that you would use machines to do your work, like how you would get turrets to do your work and do all that sort of stuff. And Remember Me, I thought was going to be kind of interesting in that regard because it wasn't going to, it was going to take a different turn from most games. It was going to be more about remixing memories, making people remember things differently, and not, just kind of occasionally do what the main character is notorious for doing. In fact, throughout the game, it only happens 4 times. And I mean, during the times that it does happen, it's interesting. One of them is funny as hell. But ultimately, what do I have to say about it? It's too few. And in fact, the 3rd and 4th one are the same scenario that you then remix again in the 4th time. And it's just, that's not exactly... That's like, so really there's only three times you actually remix memories, and I just thought that for something that was so interesting, that they could have taken it a completely different direction and it could have been a lot more well developed. So, and the final cherry on top of this all is that the game feels kind of safe. It feels kind of like they had some interesting ideas, some different things, and then that was really it. And then they kind of fell back on stuff that was already well known for being well done, and they kind of didn't diversify enough. Now, it's not to say it's not enjoyable, but for $60, I don't really think that this is the kind of thing that really appeals to the price tag. And just playing through the game once you play through it, there's kind of really no reason to play it again. I mean, I will play it again because it is interesting, and I want to see what other combos you can come up with and all that kind of stuff. But let's face it, this game is kind of, cut and dry. Once you've played like a couple levels, you pretty much know what the remainder of the game is going to be like. Now, setting-wise and story-wise, I have to give this game an A because it's really well done. The game is set in futuristic Paris, 2084. As I've already said, the Sensens, or memory devices hooked up to everybody, including children, are constantly in use every day. They act as sort of your ID. They act as sort of your interface with the outside world, and they really just change the way people, the way everyone lives. Okay, but that also means that the world has become more of a surveillance state. The world is more. It's kind of like 1984 with a little bit of Fahrenheit 451 with some Huxley, that kind of stuff. And I have to say, again, that already strikes a chord with me. But just the way that they implemented it, it felt like 1984 meets Mirror's Edge. You know what I mean? With some ideas in between. Like, I thought that was really well done. I thought it was very good. So, I give them an A+ for story, an A+ for setting. You play as Nilin, who is a memory hunter who has been captured, and her memory is being drained. And you basically break out, and your whole goal of the game is to try and take down the company that's basically dominating the world with this new technology and Sensen known as Memorize. And along the way, you meet a whole bunch of people. You get to see you get to see a lot into Nilin's past. You get to see a lot about the villains. A lot of different enemies are going to come combat you. And it's going to be a rather interesting journey trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And then there's definitely a lot of plot twists on the way. A lot of stuff you probably might see coming, but definitely some stuff that you probably won't, especially like towards the halfway point, 60% into the game. So the music just goes hand in hand with this game. It really helps with the atmosphere. Graphically, this game, again, also it's pretty good. And it's just, they really did a good job presenting this game. I just don't think that a level by level beat 'em up was really the way to go. And especially with the fact that the memory, the ability to manipulate memories isn't actually that prominently featured in the game. I think that definitely could change. It's definitely a game breaker or a deal breaker. It's not exactly, it feels more like a beat 'em up with maybe the occasional interesting segment. So unfortunately, as much as I was looking forward to Remember Me, and as much as I actually did enjoy a lot of it, I have to, bring down the hammer on this game, unfortunately. So what would I give Remember Me on a verdict scale from 0 to 100? I would probably rate Remember Me as a 75. It's okay. It's something that'll definitely be interesting if you're into this kind of thing. But other than that, it's kind of cut and dry. You've pretty much played it before, and especially if you played a lot of beat 'em ups, you've pretty much seen it before. And other than the memory manipulation, you're probably just going to be like, okay, well, it's time to go through the works. But I can appreciate them doing this, but at the same time, I was kind of let down, to be completely honest. So, sorry Capcom, sorry Dontnod, you guys did a great job with this game, but it could have been a bit better in my opinion. So hopefully next time you guys come out with something, a bit more meat on its bones, so to say. So I'm SpraynPray1000. I can't tell you what the next verdict will be. It'll either probably be The Last of Us or Fuse, depending on which one gets finished first. But I'll see you guys later, and hopefully you stick around. So take care. Well, what was that? On his face? What? Oh, the gun safety. You can disable it here.
I give you more than
What a dumb idiot. Yo, he freaking kills himself with the stupid gun. If you take the safety off there, he kills his own self because he's playing with the gun. Are you kidding me?